Hey, in the last few lessons, we've looked at what forms can do and all the different wonderful ways of adding in and providing users a way to input content into the forms. So we're going to be also looking at in this lesson more options that you have with forms. So there's a lot of different ways to collect that information from the form. So we had already looked at input, and we're going to look at a little bit more with what we can do with inputs. But this time, let's also look at select. And what select does is it defines a drop-down list. So you can have a number of options within the drop-down list. And then these are their own tags where we've got an option and setting up the value of the option. So set that to be 1. And then the visual value for the user as 1. So notice that I did this one as uppercase so that we can see the difference of what actually gets submitted as opposed to what the user sees. So these are two different values, and they're going to be treated separately. And also the select, in order for us to process it, it should have a name. So I'll just call it the select cell. I'll update and I'll remove out the action, update this back to get, and do a refresh on it. So this is our option drop-down list, and depending on the browser, depending on the machine, it might show up slightly different. And the drop-down list, the first one by default is going to be checked. And if we hit the submit, and because we did a get, see the value for SEL is equal to 1. So it's actually taking the value from the value attribute as opposed to what the visual text is for the user, what the user is able to see in the drop-down. You can also set these values and also within the attributes where you can specify the select value to be for the option to be selected. So if I wanted option 2 to be the automatic one that was selected, I can specify within the attributes a selected value for that form element of the select. And that's will predefine the selected option. Otherwise, the first one within the options will be the one that's selected. You can also update the number of visible items. So we can set a size, and I don't have a whole lot to work with. So let's add in another option here at the bottom, and we'll just leave these ones the same. So if we want to see 3 of the options, we can have the 3 showing and 1 hidden because we do have 4. We can also allow users to select multiple options with a multiple attribute. So let's refresh. And now the users can hold shift down on their keyboard and they can select multiple options from the drop-down list. There's also text area, and this is another one that's very commonly used. And text area, we specify a name for it. So typically it might be something like the message content that's going to be sent to on the form submission. And if you want some default content, you just add it in between the opening and closing text area tags. And that will show the text area default. You can make by default it's draggable, so you can resize the size of the element. Also, nowadays with CSS, we're setting the size using CSS. There's also options to set to be number of rows. So if you're wanting to use just regular within the HTML attributes, you can specify how many rows and then also how many columns you want to display the text area. And that will resize the amount of space allocated to the text area. And as well, just as we saw with the original inputs, we can apply labels to those to provide more context to what's contained within that area. There's also the ability to do it with styling. And so this is more commonly used with style, that we specify the width of the element, and also we can specify the height of that element. And this is separated by the colon. And that's just applying the style attribute. And then that way it will set the text area to whatever style attribute has been specified. There's also inputs. So we don't always use the submit button that we saw within the submit input. You can also use buttons. So these are the button elements within HTML. And what they do is they create buttons. So specifying the type as a button. And there was also some options here. So this can actually be type submit. It can also be reset. And what reset will do is it will clear the contents of the input field. So I'll set it as reset button. And these are opening and closing tags. So whatever content is between the opening and closing tags of the element is what's going to be visible to the user. So you reset it and enter in some content, reset, and it'll reset it back to the original content that was set in the form fields as it was loaded. So let's go back into the input types, since there's a lot of input types that we haven't covered yet. And the input types, especially with HTML5, have given us a lot more flexibility with what we can do with the different inputs. So we'll just start by going over some of them and just did a quick cleanup of the code. I'll move down the inputs just down here below. So specifying the input, and we've already gone over button type, we've already gone over text type, so those are some of the more common types of inputs. So these are all specified with input type. And next, let's look at checkbox. And what checkbox does is it creates a check area for the input. And a lot of times you do need to apply the labels to these. Otherwise, the context of the checkboxes is hard to decipher. So they're either checked or unchecked. And you can also specify that they're going to be checked. So adding in the attribute of checked and refresh, and that's going to create a default of it being checked. And then wrapping it with the label, applying a name to it. So we'll take a look at that, and we'll refresh, submit the content, and then within the URL, you can see that the checkbox has a value of on. There's also the content coming from the text area and also from the select dropdown, and then the two input fields. And if we uncheck it and submit it, the value is not going to get shown because there's no value that's being passed when it's unchecked. So checked is on when the checkbox is selected. There's also some really neat ones with HTML5 where we've got one called color. So what color does is it allows us to select a color from the pop-up window. And let's give this a name. I'll just give it a name of color, so that when we pass the value within the string, we'll be able to, within the web URL, we'll be able to see whatever value is selected. So selecting the color, you click it, it opens up this color picker option. And from there, you can select various colors. You can also use the eyedropper as well. So there's a lot of options here to select colors. You can get the named colors. You can also just select colors through the spectrum, through pencils, and then also adjusting the slider for the various RGB colors and so on, and it's building out hex colors. So we're going to be looking at more of this as we progress into CSS. But for now, it's just important to know that you do have the option to select a color within the color picker when you use the color type. And then you press me, the color gets passed as a hex value into the request URL. Next, let's look at the input date. So type and look at date, and then pass in a date, a name for it. And a lot of these that came with HTML5, we used to have to do them with JavaScript manually to create these types of date pickers. And one thing to keep in mind as well, when you are using some of these newer input types, you have to be mindful of the fact that they might not work the same across all the different browsers. So there are some limitations. So let's submit the date value and see what the value that gets submitted into the URL. So do keep that in mind, that if you are using these, that you should always test them across other browsers just to make sure that you do have some consistency. And as I've had experience before where you've got especially with the date picker and the color picker, there is some inconsistency when you are using different browsers like Safari and some of the older browsers as well. There's also date time, which is going to be similar to date. It's going to give us a little bit more option. So date time. And let's actually update this to date time local. So it's the proper type, date time local. And it's same as the date, but it's giving us an option to provide a time as well. So you can enter in a time, and you can use the up and down arrows in order to enter in different time values. One that is commonly used is email. So this is going to require that the user is entering in an email address. And if it's not a properly formatted email, then it's not going to accept it within the input. So if I just write test, and if I try to submit it, I'm going to get this pop-up window. And this, again, used to be done a lot with JavaScript, but now with HTML5, if we're specifying the type of input, it's going to be checking for that. And if it's not matching the right criteria, we're not going to be able to submit it properly. Next, input type. Another common one that has been used for a long time is the password field. And what this will do is this will hide the value from the user visual. So I'll just put those 4 dots. So once we do a submission, and also did want to note that email, it can be blank, but if you do put text in there, then it has to be structured as an email. So what's being passed in is the value is being passed in within the URL, but even though we're not able to see it within the input. And that's one of the ones that if you do have password, then typically you would be using post because you'd be hiding the value of the input. So next is type file. So I'm going to give them names, but you should give them names if you are actually going to use them. So again, just for demonstration purposes. And the way that file works is this is if your form requires any type of attachment of files, then you can upload and select the file from the choose file. And depending on the browser, this is also going to show up differently. So just selecting a file quickly, it will list out the file name. And this also, keep in mind, it will look different depending on which browser your viewer is accessing the form content with. There's also hidden, and what hidden does is it's going to hide the form field from visible area. So this is good if you have default values that we're hiding, so maybe an ID or something like that, then this is something that would be typically hidden, but you might still want to pass that information. So when we do press that information, even though it's hidden, and I do need to give it a name, let's try that one more time. And even though it's hidden, it's still being passed within the request parameters. So another one that is commonly used is number, and much like what we saw with email, it's going to force that this value is going to be a number value. So if you try to type in some characters in there and submit it, it's going to give you the error message that please enter a number. You also get the default option here to move it up and down for the numbers. There's also radio buttons. And radio buttons are a little bit tricky because they do need to have the same name in order to be able to move between them. So I'm going to create a couple radio buttons, and what you would typically have labels for each radio button. So we've got 3 different radio buttons, and in order to have the effect where you can only select one of them, you move through them and you give them the same name, and then once it gets submitted for the radio button, it will just have a value of on because we haven't specified any value for any of them. So you can as well specify values, and then this will be passed in if this is the radio button that was selected from the user. So one more time and go back, just do a quick refresh there, and we'll select one of the radio buttons, press, and we'll go back to the end of the string, and now we're getting a value that's being passed in there. So it's not just on. So always make sure that with radio buttons, you're using the name. The name is the same across all the radio buttons, and you're assigning values to each one of these radio buttons. You can also have it as a default of checked, and that will automatically check the radio button. There's also other inputs such as type, and there's URL. So this is going to require a URL format. So if you do type in content in here, it's going to flag it as not being URL type content. There's also type input telephone. And this one just acts as a regular input text field. So there's no special properties to this one, or no special checks. And this is more semantic because it's not going to flag it as anything if we put in some text in there and if we enter it. And let's just do one more before we conclude. And I know we've gone over quite a bit in this lesson. So there's range, and I'll give it a name. And the way that range works is it's got this slider element that's going to appear within the form where you've specified the range to exist. It's got a visual controller for the range value, but we don't have any values that are set. Typically, you would set a minimum and a maximum value. So if we wanted 0 and the max would be 10, and these are set within the attributes of the input, then would I understand that somewhere in the middle there, the value for the range is going to be around 8. And this is another one that you have to be really careful of. So even though it looks nice and provides a really nice option visually, it might not always be supported by every browser. So do test it before using it. So now it's up to you. Try out a few of the different inputs, form elements, and create a really interesting form for yourself and for your web project. And you can be ready to move on to the next lesson.